smile that makes the sun rise. You make it shine, but I can see that you don't realize, and that's what made me fall in love. 'Cause you got style, the way your body makes my heart beat sound. It's amazing all the time. You are the only thing I need in life. Oh, I want you. Can't you see? I want you. I believe, 'cause I want you. Here with me, I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna go crazy for love. I look at you, I know it's alright. You read my mind, but I can see that you don't realize, and that's what made me fall in love. 'Cause you got style, the way your body makes my heart beat sound. It's amazing all the time. You are the only thing I need in life. Oh, I want you. Can't you see? I want you. I believe, 'cause I want you. Here with me, I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna go crazy for love. I don't need another love. Yeah. We do this every day. We do this love for life. You got a smile that makes the sun rise. You make it shine, but I can see that you don't realize, and that's what made me fall in love. 'Cause you got style, the way your body makes my heart beat sound. It's amazing all the time. You are the only thing I need in life. Oh, I want you. Can't you see? I want you. I believe, 'cause I want you. Here with me, I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna go crazy for love.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in again to the Clubhouse Chaotic Chat. We're glad that you have stopped in today. It's going to be another fun show as the Sunday evening mainstay continues on with incredible guests from around our community, bringing them to you. And tonight we've got a special one. You're going to get to know our guest and hopefully do like I did and want to follow them on social media because, man, they've got some good stuff going on. So as you're sitting in tonight, make sure you hit that like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're watching on the replay and getting this, make sure you leave a comment afterwards. We always love to hear from you that way. Debbie and the mods are going to be dropping links in throughout the night for our guests. Make sure that you're clicking them up and checking them out as we're having the show and following along. It's going to be a very special show tonight. Jen, hello. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
You know what? I'm happy to be back here doing our Sunday best with another great guest. It is just us tonight. We should obviously acknowledge because they're not on the screen. Tina is up and she was out with the 4th of July with the family up in the northeast area of the country up there and doing some stuff. Miss Minter is down in the parks, or she was, is on her way back home. And Stephanie was away with family with Paul, celebrating, obviously, I think, them getting married. So we wanted to keep the show running, and here we are. So I'm excited. You ready for tonight?
I am ready for tonight. This is the best way to end a nice, long, festive weekend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to have some fun tonight with everything as we go through. We're going to learn a little bit more. Our opening for our guests, when we do the introductions, a little bit more detailed today because it's a newer person to our community. And every time we have a newer person, I try to put it together with you ladies to make sure to give them a little bit more when we get started so that the people can get a little bit of an understanding of who we're talking with tonight. So we're going to get that rolling. But first, we need to say hello to people in the chat. I need to grab my hand, don't I?
Grab your hand.
Well, it says that everybody else, as the person will be reading, will be waving, and I'm the only other person, so I have to be waving.
You're the person. You need to put your hand on and wave.
God, it's a lot bigger than I thought it was. All right.
That's what she said.
That is what
Okay.
she said.
Before we get started, I want to acknowledge Kay Wilby. Thank you for your generosity, gifting 5 channel memberships.
Thank
Kay,
you.
we love you. You're always very supportive of the channel, so we thank you very much. We'll get
Absolutely.
that out of the way. Now let's welcome in everybody in the
Let's do it.
chat.
Who we got?
Want to say hello to April Bouncing Journey, Vicky Gillespie, Fred O'Malley, Debbie Bernfeld, Teresa Skawara, Mandy Mary, Jason Thibodeau, Nanny Pooh Bear, Dame Dystopia,
Hello.
Rob UK Dizdad, Daniel Berry Sports Highlights,
Hello.
Mark F, Plymouth Rock, Surf Bum, Alex Miller, Shelby Sunlit, and the 927 with Cakes and Kenny J. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I think that's your first time here. Thanks for joining us. Dave's Disney Dreams. Hi, Dave.
Dave.
We also have Reed in the Tower. Hello, Reed in the Tower. And that's all I have for right now. So as people come in, we'll be sure to catch you.
We will grab you along the way. And thank you all for being here tonight. We're excited. It's going to be a good time here as we go through. To give Jen a minute here to let me hold on. Let me turn that off in the background.
Okay.
I just heard that. So let me turn that off so that we're good there. Let me go over to here real quick and let's talk about last week's show as we are preparing. We had a great show last week. It was an amazing friend of the community. And it's actually 2 weeks ago. It kind of all runs together. David T joined us and we learned a lot about him. He came dressed to the nines, man. He came in a full tuxedo. I was blown away with Dave, with what he did there. And it was awesome. So we appreciate him. And let's talk about that show. We learned a lot about David T and his love of Disney and Disney cruising especially. And his collection of popcorn buckets and sippers was really powerful. We had a nice display behind him. He reminded us not to forget his favorite drink was over there at the Poly with his Dole Whip float with rum. We got to hear about his military service. Thank you, Dave. If you're watching again, we appreciate you. And how he now spends time volunteering with the USO, which is an amazing way to spend your time supporting more of our military friends. We got to hear about his other passion of haunted house attractions and his time volunteering at the Den School, which is an amazing location itself. And Dave talked so lovingly about his kids, his family, his daughter, who is a Disney cast member on the Disney Cruise Line. So it was awesome to hear about that. If you didn't get to see the show, Maj, drop the link in. If you haven't already, you guys can go back and check it out. And it was a lot of fun getting to know David T. I know you had a really fun with that show, Jen.
Yeah, who doesn't love David T? He's everywhere. He's so supportive of so many channels. He does some really cool things on his channel, always keeping us up to date with what's new in the cruise line from his daughter.
Yep.
Always has something to say, always has something, value to contribute. And I mean, come on, look at how he came dressed.
He came dressed in a full
I think that's a triple C first. So
it is.
props to him for that.
He's got one problem.
Oh.
He's a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
But they don't win anyway, so we're good there.
Oh, uh-huh.
So there we go.
Yeah, I'm not going to say nothing because everybody knows where I'm from.
There you go. So, well, let's talk a little bit about our guest tonight, if we could. How about that?
All right. So tonight's guest is a Disney worldwide aficionado. He has visited Disneyland, Disney's California Adventure, Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom. He's also been fortunate enough to go to Hong Kong Disneyland, Tokyo Disneyland, and Tokyo Disney Sea.
Wow.
All on my bucket list. So I think we're going to hear some really cool stories tonight about that.
I'm jealous. I ain't gonna lie.
In addition to traveling worldwide, following the magic, he is also a dedicated annual pass holder and a D23 member. And his YouTube channel serves as an amazing landing place for people to escape their daily lives and get lost in the theme parks. He's a passionate participant in all things festival food and fun. However, when it comes to the world of Beverly, emphatic no.
Yeah, I'm right there with him. I'll be
Yeah.
standing right next to him, supporting him.
I
agree
think
with
very few can say that they would like it, but
that.
yeah. Okay, let's not talk about that anymore. Okay, our guest tonight has had incredible accomplishments outside of the park as well, including hiking in the Grand Canyon and actively visiting 49 out of the 50 states.
That's an accomplishment I would love to have on my bucket list. I think that's pretty cool to have seen the United
Mm-hmm.
States the way it is. I'm curious when I
Yeah.
ask, we got to find out what state would, where's the one he's missing, and how do we get him there?
Yep. I have a feeling we're going to hear about that. He is an avid Disney collector with unique pieces that include multiple park maps, rare Disney pins. I know pins has been a hot topic on this channel here for the past few weeks.
Yes.
A special one-of-a-kind items from the Swiss Family Robinson, as well as commemorative pieces celebrating 100 years of Disney Imagineering.
Love that.
That sounds pretty cool too.
Love that.
So joining us in a few minutes, somebody new to our community that we're going to get to know tonight. His name is Kevin, and he is from Disney Kinda Life.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I've had the chance to sit and talk with him a little bit. And, for everybody out there that knows the story of what we try to do over here and the power of positivity and uplifting others and being a place of happiness, he has so much of the same verbiage in his community and his channel and what he's trying to do and the happiness he's trying to bring. And when I started talking with him, I was like, this is the perfect type of creator that we'd like to get to know. So I'm excited. We're going to have some fun. But first, tonight we always do our fun questions here at the beginning. And tonight I'm ready for you. I've got a fun question for you. And this is great because I get to sit in the catbird seat and have some fun. So Jen, if you could appear on any reality show, competition or other, which would it be for you and why? I'm curious.
It's funny you asked this because this is something I had thought about years ago.
Okay.
I think that I would have done an awesome job with my dad if we went on The Amazing Race.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My dad just knows just enough about a little bit of everything. And with his military travels, he's good at navigating and things like that. He could do all of those crazy eating things. Come to think of it, I don't know how I would contribute if he's doing the navigating and the eating, but I just think that it would have worked.
It would have worked.
I thought it would have been fun. Yeah, I had thought of that before. I didn't think we'd ever get on the show, but I always thought, you know what? I think Dad and I, we do a half decent job.
As a side note, my brother was a finalist for that show.
I did not know that.
I don't think I've ever told anybody that the executive producer that took over on that show when it started was the executive producer from the Jerry Springer show. And he called my brother and he went through the whole thing. And at the last thing, they didn't make it. So
who was going to be his partner?
His partner from the wrestling school, 2 wrestlers.
Okay.
So
not you.
Oh God, no! Come on.
Wouldn't have been a brother,
No, I'm dragging
duo.
I'm dragging like an anchor. I'm not eating anything that's not. I can't say pizza with it. So
I don't know. So I'm thinking, like I'm saying, I do good on the show, and then like now that I'm saying it out loud, like I wouldn't eat. He would navigate
something. It could have been done. You never know. I do love the show. See, and I love it this week because since you're the only one here, I do the question, and then we get our guest in here, and that's how we rock it.
We want to give our viewers a little more than just that. So I have a question for you.
I don't have that in the script. Hold on.
That's okay. We go off script many times.
Oh boy. All right.
Okay. You want to take a deep breath? You think about it. I'm going to welcome in a few more guests.
Okay.
You think about this. I want to welcome in Home Candies and Cakes 2112 and Photon Empress. Hello, Photon Empress.
Hello.
And I have to say hello to the beautiful Lily of Lily's Life.
Lily.
Hello, Lily. Thanks for joining us tonight. Oh, and Karen Holly. Hello, Karen.
Hello.
Thanks
Welcome
for joining us.
Hit that subscribe.
Okay.
If you haven't. Can I phone a friend or no?
I don't think you're going to need to.
All right.
I mean,
go
you
ahead.
can if you want to. I mean, I'm sure Dame's available. She's in the chat.
Oh, no, I was going to call Lily, but go ahead.
Oh, Lily. No, this one is all you, bud.
Okay.
If you could go back in time
Okay.
and talk to your 12-year-old self, you get 15 minutes. What would you tell your 12-year-old self?
I would probably tell my 12-year-old self I should have said yes to the military when my grandfather pushed it instead of no, because he was an admiral in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
2, I would probably tell myself that no matter what happens, there are going to be points that are terrifying, that it'll all work out. And I would probably tell myself that my kids are going to be a million times better on this earth than I ever was with what they do. I think that's what I would do.
See, that's amazing. I love those answers. But it kind of makes me feel stupid that I'm like, oh, I got an amazing race.
Well,
that was a really good question is what I'm saying. I love that when we can do this and now everybody can get, a little more knowledge of you and what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And that's kind of cool.
Well, it also points out that you write better questions than I do, so I got to pick up my game. So with that, I think that we're gonna go and let's get our guest in here because I'm excited to talk to Kevin. Let's his channel, everybody, is Disney Kind of Life. He's available on other social medias as well. Debbie's dropping the links in here. We're going to talk about his Disney, his magic, and everything that he brings. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Kevin of Disney Kind of Life. Hello, sir.
Hello, Pete. Hello, Jen. How's it going?
It's going until she starts throwing curveballs at me. So
I'm ready for curveballs, but I can't hit them. So
I love it. I love
Nice.
it. I love it. I love it. Well, I want to say thank you to you for coming on with us tonight here. And when you get a guy that reaches out to you out of the blue, talking about, hey, we want to focus on your channel and talk about your social media. I know there's a lot of clowns out there, and I'm glad you've given me the time and trusting us, and we're gonna have fun. Debbie's already loving your shirt. Look,
I was gonna say there's a few comments about the shirt already.
Everybody's the shirt right out of the back.
I got to tell you, it took and anybody who knows about me and shirts, it took me like 45 solid minutes to figure out which one to wear. I have some candidates that were fighting this shirt for it, but I felt this was appropriate given my interests, which we'll get into obviously in the interview and what I'm about. So
I love it. I love it. I actually had a similar conversation with my son today. I was packing for tomorrow because I'm going to the Brewers and the White Sox game up in Milwaukee and all that. And I was going through shirts and pulling out T-shirts, and he literally opened the door and goes, "You have 19 Roosevelts. What is the problem?" So
19. Like, well, I have like 20. Just kidding. It's we don't want to know. We don't want to know that.
I don't have that one, and that one is spectacular. I love Pie Face Mickey. So well, let's get into it. Just rock and roll, and just a simple introduction about yourself for our viewers who are watching you tonight or on the replay to get to know you a little better, joining us for the first time.
All right, thank you. So I'm Kevin, and I'm from Disney Kind of Life. I am one half of the team. If you're checking us out on social media, you're going to mostly see me in the front. Emma, my wife, is pretty much our main editor. But we are two. So if you see us in the park, there's another one with me. And every once in a while, I try to sneak her on some of my videos, and I don't tell her. But we'll keep that between you and I. But so a little bit about me. I love the theme parks. I love pop culture. I love storytelling. I think that stems from my love of movies ever since I was a kid. Always loved movies, even more so than like TV shows and cartoons, but movies always kind of drew me in. And I still live by that to this day. I'm always interested in new movies, and my genres are kind of all over the place. And that plays really well with theme parks because they're like whole other worlds. Just like opening a book, stepping into a theme park. So I love storytelling. I love listening to stories, learning about people, and theme parks are a great way to do that. I love sports. I'm a native of the San Francisco Bay Area, so all my sports affiliations are from that area. So no A's, no Raiders. 49ers, Giants, Warriors, Sharks. It's hard to follow the Sharks though here in Florida, but I can still keep up with the other three. I think those are kind of my main points about me, without spoiling too much of the Disney love.
That's where that cheap NHL package comes in when you can get that. It's the cheapest one of all four, I think. You can still get them.
I think you can find them for free too if you do a little Googling, but keeping up with just the 49ers and the Giants from Florida and the Warriors is enough to keep you busy. Plus theme parks being 20 minutes away, that keeps you busy too.
Well, we'll have to get you in I'm broadcasting like 5 49er games this year, so we'll have to get you in for that. Before we go to the next question, I want to remind everybody that, hey, we are making sure that you know that Debbie is dropping links into the chat for our guests for his YouTube channel and the social medias as well surrounding it. If you're having a good time enjoying the interview night, hit that subscribe. If you do, please let us know that you subscribe to our guests in the chat. We'd love to let him know along the way. You know, Kevin, we always talk to our guests about what it's like when they kind of arrived at this Disney social media community, as you started meeting people out there and you go to the parks, you're seeing friends and making friends online, making friends with those who follow your channel as you get out there and talk to them. What was, could you share a little bit of your journey finding the YouTube social media community?
I think it's going to start a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, somewhere around, I don't know, 2007. I got really active 2008 with the Mice Chat community, probably more so in their forums, just kind of posting. They stem from a bulletin board era of the early 00s, maybe even the late 90s. It's run by Dusty Sage.
90s,
yeah. And so I kind of just went on there and was sharing, you know, thoughts and opinions, and like they call trip reports, like when you go to the park and you write out a paragraph review of what you did in the park. And then I also latched on to a couple of content creators from that time that mostly did written stuff. So it was mostly written blogs, obviously, back in the day. So I kind of followed that through. And during that time, you know, plans for the reimagining of California Adventure were coming about. So it was really exciting time to be on a forum and talking about Cars Land and the Little Mermaid ride and the reface of California Adventure, which in my opinion was absolutely horrible park when it opened, and it's completely almost, you know, 180, whatever's even higher than 180 to what it is today. So there was a lot of back and forth and words about what they were doing with California Adventure at that time period. And then as we kind of moved into at that time, I think Disneyland's 55th anniversary was a big deal. Haunted Mansion's 40th anniversary happened around 2009. And I just started going to the D23 fandom started. They had events. And so all this stuff just kind of started building, which is, you know, what social media is today. And as I was following that, I really wanted to do a blog, but felt in California, we didn't live close enough to Disneyland to produce enough content to keep it interesting. Looking back on it now, I probably could have actually done a pretty good job, because we did go like once a month. We were like a 5-hour drive away from the Disneyland gate. But just kind of kept that in our pocket for when we decided someday to retire to Florida. And then when we moved here, not retired, by the way, but we moved to Florida and decided to launch DisneyKindOfLife.com and started written, because I am not somebody who likes to be on camera. Oh, here I am on camera, so we'll get to that. And then as I kind of did the written thing, you know, it's a dated, I'll call it dated tech. People don't read like they used to. So I keep my articles kind of in brevity, very brief, try to be on point, not make them too lengthy, and try to teach people stuff if they're going to read them. Like if it's a trip report, or if it's, hey, this is the, you know, the Arts and Wine Festival or Food and Wine Festival. And then I kind of figured out like, maybe I should try filming. So I launched Disney Kind of Life, and my first video is actually me opening an action figure because I love Star Wars. Just to test it, like, do I like speaking into a camera? Do I sound interesting? Do I look interesting? Will anyone watch it? I didn't expect anyone to watch the action figure video. It is out there still, just, you know, it's the first video. So I kind of left it there. We did a couple of like just raw uploads when we were in Japan, but nothing like with me on camera. So as I started toying with the idea, I had to get comfortable with it. So I started taking a camera into the parks and just filming, and never uploaded some of the rough ones, and then went back and watched them on TV. And then here we are today and still going and enjoying it. Obviously I like being on camera now, and I'm okay with it. And it's a lot of fun. I feel that when I verbally talk about what I see in the parks or what we're doing, it's easier for me to express myself. I mean, I feel my articles are really, really well written, but the verbal thing and visuals way better when you're talking about theme parks and being able to show stuff. Our beautiful weather here, it looks great on camera, showing it off. You know, Epcot, you can't take a bad video in Epcot. It's really hard. So
you just made her night right there with that camera.
Epcot's my favorite.
I love it. Just before we go over to show real quick, that Disney Kind of Life over there, 2.6K, 87 videos, has done really well for it. Great banner at the top there. So as Debbie's dropping the link in, if you want to check it out over there, please go ahead.
Well, I want to welcome in a few more of our friends that have joined our chat before I get into my questions.
Awesome.
I want to say hello to Zippity Doo Doug, and it's me, David T, and Park Bros,
Okay.
and Mark Langenkamp,
Nice.
and Nick and Claire. Hello.
Oh, hello, Nick and Claire.
And Jeff Condon.
Nice. Good
So,
people.
hello,
coming in.
friends. Yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. Okay, now I'm going to get into my questions, and I want to take it a little personal for a minute and talk about your career. You have a career spanning well over 30 years, and I know you're very proud of that and how it has opened the door to your incredible hobby. So, could you spend a little time with our audience talking about how the skills you've learned during this time frame have shaped your personality and outlook on life?
Sure. So, just so the audience knows, I've worked for my company, Albertsons, for over 30 years now. So I started as a bagger, and I've probably held, maybe 30 different jobs. I'm currently an IT manager. So that's where I am now. So bagger to IT manager, every job exists at a grocery store that you could possibly want. And what I often tell people at the age of 26, I actually became a manager of people both younger and older than me. So I feel that part of my life right there shaped a lot of my personality. I've always been outgoing, maybe not when I was younger, but as I got into high school and into college, I definitely blossomed as a social butterfly. And anybody who's been around me knows that. And so when I became a manager, and took that step forward of leading people, I wanted to instill like some of the values that my managers I had worked for had, both good and bad. Now, I didn't want to use the bad stuff. I was trying to learn from the bad stuff and not install that into like my package of a manager. And I continue this thought process, even 20 years after that first step. So that definitely helps keep me structured. Running projects for a corporation, our corporation is really big. And when you do anything, you have to meticulously plan stuff and you can't just jump into the water. And I use those skills, obviously, with Disney Kind of Life. Em and I plan stuff before we go do it. When we're shooting, we know what the mission and what the point is of the video, right? Rather than just kind of like, oh, here's the new flowers there, here's the new popcorn. Like, we already know what we want to cover. We kind of know what we want to try. And all that comes from my work planning. And again, I try to be as authentic as I can at work with my employees, with my coworkers, my colleagues, my vendors. I would be probably a really bad salesperson because I really like to have straight talk, and some salespeople don't give you straight talk. Maybe I'd be a good salesman. I don't know, but I like to stay authentic, keep it real. I try not to beat around the bush. I get to the point. My meetings are usually going to be short and to the point. And then I try to save time later. Everybody in my meetings knows they're going to get some Disney talk if they ask, or they're going to talk about what shirt I'm wearing at work for the day, because a lot of times that dictates my mood. Bright shirts, happy Kevin, dark shirts, watch out, it might be a rough morning. So, I feel I've gained a huge resume from just the work experience I've gotten, with Albertsons, and I've been able to translate it into my personal life with in hobbies and how I approach things. It's mostly about, I'd say, the planning and just kind of being authentic. Because like I said, I've had managers that are just not authentic and they're horrible to work for. And I really try hard not to be that person. I try to be that person in real life, not just at work, but also when people come up and talk to me at the theme parks or when I'm hanging out in a group of people.
Nice. Great answer.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Wow. You said a lot there. That was awesome. We know that finding and meeting accomplishments and run Disney events has been an important part of your journey. How has that experience sparked motivation in your life? And what did it feel like to complete the Dopey Challenge?
It felt like
That's
this.
awesome.
There you go.
I have goosebumps holding this medal. Let me tell you. In fact,
that is awesome.
When you do the Dopey Challenge, excuse me while I make some noise. You get 6 medals when you do it, right? So you get this one. You get this one. I'm going to probably drop them all, but let me grab them. I got this one. And yeah, like there's a picture of me from Instagram. I should have shared that one when I shared some of my photos, and this one. So, we got all this stuff, but the Dopey Challenge. So I'm assuming most people are kind of cognizant of what the Dopey Challenge is. And I have a wonderful written article about how we got to the Dopey Challenge and completed it. Because my Run Disney journey is kind of one that'll hit home, I feel. And it's a story I tell people about one more time for the Dopey Challenge. I love this medal so much. And I don't know, somewhere around 2010, probably, I was severely overweight, high blood pressure, high cholesterol for somebody in his 30s. I mean, come on. I had changed a lot of stuff there. And, I was into the blogging scene with my chat on their forums a lot. I was watching some people do the Run Disney stuff. And I kind of thought that it sounded cool to run through the parks, right? And so typical me, I start researching. I won't just sign up for a half marathon because, when I Google what a half marathon is, 13 miles, it's like, okay, I can't do that today. I know this. I won't just sign up for it. Some people use that as a motivation, like, oh, I sign up for the half marathon, I'm going to get there. Me, it's, can I even do a 3K, at that point? And so
Right.
I started with 1 mile, which, like 1.2K or whatever. And I was like, let me see if I can do that, what I feel like, how long does it take to get there? And so I started building that. And the Dopey challenge, Em and I had it on our radar, like someday let's do that. And when we moved here, we're like, okay, now it's time to do that. We don't have to get hotel rooms and things, like it's here, we're here. And, the training for that, the statistics for that, I still look back in amazement that we did it. And we never doubted we couldn't do it, but until you do it, you just don't know. I mean, injuries can play a factor in that. The weather, sometimes they shorten them if the weather's just not safe. They won't run the full marathon, and we didn't want that to happen to us. I know a lot of people are like, wow, you could have shortened it. It's like, no, I really wanted to do the, 26 miles, and of course the whole thing's 48.6. And I'm not afraid to tell people I'm an emotional person. I cried finishing that was my first marathon ever.
Awesome.
And Emma's first marathon ever. We'd done half marathons, but just to put that peg in the sand of, hey, we're going to do the Dopey. It's our first marathon. And oh, by the way, it's after you do a half marathon and a 10K and a 5. It's just an incredible feat. And in the article that I have on our site, I pretty much tell you, if you've never done a half, I wouldn't sign up for the Dopey and put that out there as like your motivation to start. You really should. I tell people, try a 10K, because a 5K is almost a loop at Epcot. Not quite. A loop at Epcot is 3K, in case anyone's wondering.
Oh.
If you go from Spaceship Earth and trace like the outer portion of Epcot and get in the World Showcase all the way around and go back, that's 3K. So if you do 2 of those, that's 6. And some of our Dopey training did take us, like there was one weekend where we had to do, I think, 13 miles of walking. And so we parked at Epcot, and luckily this time of the training was November, December-ish. So the weather was fine, but we did multiple loops at Epcot, walked over to Hollywood Studios and did multiple loops there and walked back. And then we got all of our miles in just walking. That was a walking day, not running, never run in the parks, unless it's during a Disney event, but, or you're trying to get that last ride in at the end of the night. But, so we did all of that and got to the day and took care of it. And that accomplishment is one that we're still proud of. Like I said, I got goosebumps holding the medal. I look at the medal a lot. It's very inspirational. And a lot of people are like, would you ever do it again? It's like, yeah, maybe not every year. There's people who do it every year. It's crazy. Because when you get through the training, it's like 6 months of your life. We started in June on that training. And steps wise, I think we did 1.8 million steps. I tracked this. In fact, I just pulled it up. We ran 497 miles. This is the training from June, though. June all the way to January. 125 hours of running. Average steps per week. This doesn't actually, or per day, this doesn't actually sound bad because it's under 10,000. But there's some days where you don't feel like walking when you're training. And average steps per week was 66,000. So when people see that end goal, you kind of have to take a step back and remind them, like, hey, I started at 1K, 1 mile, right? And that was like in 2010, and it took us all the way till 2023 to actually do the Dopey. I didn't want to drop the money because it's expensive to do the Dopey until I knew we could get there. And you got to have good health and persistence, because the not so glorious part of the marathons and half marathons is watching buses go by you full of people that got swept. And it could be injuries, it could be whatever, but there is a pace you have to keep. So it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
You don't want those balloon ladies to grab you.
Yeah,
We hear those stories about those balloon ladies.
the famous balloon. I have a picture in that article of their balloons, and there was a time where you could actually follow the balloon ladies on Twitter, and you knew where they were. So like if you're on the course, people are like looking at their phone. And I was proud because we defeated the balloon ladies by 2 hours during the marathon. And it was our first marathon. I was like, oh, he's like, we got them. But they don't do the Twitter thing anymore. Something changed with SMS texting. But so they don't do that. I was kind of like, oh, it's kind of sad. It was kind of cool to watch them because I had watched them for years on Twitter, even before we ever did one.
You probably did it just to keep up. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's such an amazing experience. Good for you.
Well, from one amazing experience to another, and this is totally different. Our guest tonight, Kevin, has had the opportunity, this is ridiculously incredible, to meet two Disney icons, Bob Gurr and Dave Smith. Now, I get goosebumps saying Gurr, and my goosebumps got goosebumps when I said Dave Smith. For those of you that don't know, Dave Smith is the historian that started the Disney, all the Disney icon, all the historical documentation of history and it still continues to this day. And God bless him. God rest his soul. I would have given anything to meet him. What impact did these encounters have on your life? And what were these moments like for you personally to go and live through?
So with the Bob Gurr meeting, it was at one of the D23 conventions early on. Might have even been the first one in 2009 or 10. I went, or I think it was 9, their first one. I think they did them every 2 years like they still do. And I want to say he was at the My Chat booth. And so I was kind of hanging out with Dusty Sage, and Bob Gurr was either at the table or showed up. But my interaction with him was very, brief, but I just thanked him for the Matterhorn. And a lot of people who go on the Matterhorn today, it's a lot different experience. And like, I obviously didn't go on it in 1959, but as a kid, different experience than what it is today. It's gone through several refurbishments over the years, but he was a major hand in that particular attraction. And it is one of my earlier memories of a roller coaster is the Matterhorn. So, I just kind of thanked him for that, and he's like, that's what Walt wanted. It's exactly what he said. And, and I just said, the Autotopia doesn't get enough credit today versus what it was back then. But if you look at what Autotopia looked like back in 1955, and without the rails, I mean, a lot of people don't even know it didn't have the guardrail in the middle.
Wasn't no rails back then, right?
And I think he shared with me, and this is going deep in my brain, but I think the opening day, they only had something like 7 cars working out of like 30 something, I think. And he was in charge of putting those together. He did the Main Street vehicles, the monorail. These are just the things that I remember. I have a book by him, actually put it here, that I like to tell people. It's called Designing with Bob Gurr. And this book just, I open it right up to some of the earlier Autotopia cars. And like that version of Autotopia was just something none of us have seen. I think if I remember correctly, they had like police cars, may have had a fire engine there, but it was like a little more themed than what you got going on today. And the Disneyland Autotopia still is pretty cool for what it is. It could use a little updating. I actually kind of think they missed the mark. They could have put that in Cars Land. I think a relocation of that would have been a decent thing to do.
That's a great call out.
And then one of the other things he worked on that I obviously never got to ride, but they did kind of resurrect it in Cars Land, was the flying saucers. Seeing videos of the flying saucers in action, obviously never been on them, but I did get on Luigi's tires when it was a thing for the couples of years that it did. They took one last stab at that flying saucer thing. So meeting him was great. And then I'll shift over to Dave Smith. So I was on a tour of the studios in Burbank. So corporate headquarters and the studios in the archives was part of this. And they kind of, they took us around Burbank. We saw Walt's office, which at that time was actually, had an occupant in it, so you couldn't go in it. The door was open and it just looked like a corporate office, which honestly, when I saw it, I was kind of sad. Right. I was like, wow. And he had a pretty good office there. If I remember, I was looking over Dopey Drive and kind of the whole college campus. That original Burbank, like the original part of the Burbank studios and the corporate campus, does look like a college. It really feels like it. Of course, you have the newer building. And then we got into the archives. And I didn't know who Dave was, but met him, and he introduced himself as, the head archiver or whatever his title was, and that he founded the archives somewhere in the late 60s. I think a couple years or a year or so, or maybe right around Walt's passing, he was in charge of going into Walt's office, which was mainly untouched from his passing. And he just started cataloging stuff. And there are so many things in the archive to look at. I mean, I gravitated to a lot of things, but he pulled out 2 things that were very cool to see. Pulled out a Steamboat Willie script. Now, I don't know if it was the script from like 1928, but it was a script. It wasn't encased in anything, so it leads me to believe it wasn't like an original, but it was still something that Walt had touched and had in his drawer.
Right.
And he also pulled out, which is encased in like a 1-inch thing, the first ticket to Disneyland. And so like those two things stuck out at me more than anything. I got to hold an Oscar. I can never remember what that Oscar was for. But it was cool just to hold one of the Oscars that Walt won. And just looking around the archives, for anyone who's been there knows what I'm talking about, there's just so much eye candy. I mean, Mickey Mouse watches, Oscars. I think the cabinet from Chronicles of Narnia is in the archives at the time I had gone in there. A Pete's Dragon mold of Elliot, just a gray mold, and one of those movies I love. So listening to Dave talk about how he started the archives, how important it was to him to create, like Disneyana pretty much, and the study of all these things, and me being a huge person for history in the theme parks, it's just amazing to see all this stuff. And there's just too much. I mean, I look back at some of my pictures and there's just so much stuff there.
God bless Dave. God bless Dave. That's all I can say.
He's such a nice guy, a nice gentleman.
Well, when we talk about those guys, it's admiration for what they did, but there's also influences that directly shape our paths and what we do. Could you share with us the impact of, Walt Disney himself? I'm always curious to hear about that from people, his influence that he had on you. And then, of course, you've had some direct influences with some key social media people that started back when this kind of thing got going, with Tom Bricker and Dusty Sage. If you could talk a little bit about that, I think it would be great.
Sure. So I'll start with Walt. A lot of people, when they think about Disneyland, I think Walt gets lost there until you talk to, I won't say not everyone's a fan, but like somebody like me, I really appreciate Walt's look on life. And if you consider when he was alive and the time periods he grew up through and what he did just for like film industry and just industries in general and giving people jobs, and the philanthropist he is, excuse me, tongue twister there. And I live by a lot of his quotes every day. In fact, I have one book here. I got this from Marceline. It's called Walt Every Day. In here, there's like a fact about either him or Roy that happens every day. I reference this every day, and I'll usually write stuff down here. Like I'll read today's, I bookmarked it so I could kind of, do this. So every day before work, I'll read this book. So like in 1925, Walt and Roy Disney placed a $400 deposit on a lot located at 2719 Hyperion Avenue in Los Angeles. So this is July 6th, 1925, which would become the next site of their studios. So, I mean, that's in there. And then 1952, Walt and his family arrived in England via the Queen Elizabeth ship. So I mean, I like to read that. I got that in Marceline. And then the other one this is more of a recent book. These are Walt Disney quotes. They released this.
That's a good one. I have that book. That's a great book.
And you'll see I have bookmarks. So a lot of times I'll pull from these quotes and I use them at work. Like I won't get the quote right without looking at it, but one of my favorite ones is, I'm not making movies for critics. I'll take my chances with the general public. I kind of approach our YouTube videos that way. I want to tell an interesting story, and there's always going to be critics. I always tell like my employees or anyone I come in contact with, just kind of realize maybe half the people watching this may not like what you're presenting. As long as you put your best foot forward, the critics are always going to be there. You can nitpick yourself. They're going to nitpick you, but as long as you're happy with it, just put it out there and do it. And so those are kind of a couple ways Walt influences me. Like when we walk around Disney, even here in Magic Kingdom, even though he never set foot here, but even in Disneyland more specifically, looking at the firehouse, I know you and I talked about this before. I always point that out to people who may not know he actually lived in the firehouse at Disneyland while the construction of Disneyland was going on. They leave that lamp on. That's supposed to be his spirit. When you walk through the castle, I always remember that picture of him kind of walking through the castle. Whenever you see the fire truck going down Main Street in Disneyland, there's a famous picture of him with Mickey on that fire truck. One of the last pictures of him. Bob Gurr designed the fire truck, so bringing it back to Bob Gurr. So, I mean, I walk around and I see him all over the place, and you can feel his handprints. And even at Magic Kingdom, a place he never set foot in, Roy did a very good job at paying homage to his brother and bringing that to life. And I still feel Walt in Magic Kingdom, not just the partner statue, but you can directly see influences from Disneyland. But Disneyland is the park that you really feel it. So he continues to influence me in that way. And like I said, use his quotes. I loved his outlook on life and what he did for a lot of people. So Dusty Sage I always credit with social media. So he runs Mice Chat. Like I said, I kind of got my fandom fix there for a long time, found like-minded people, did online meetings down in Disneyland. and he's a very nice person. If you run into him, he's usually at Disneyland a lot. They do good stuff over on Mice Chat. And then through there, I met Tom Bricker, who's, has his own website. And I've never seen anyone with a more detailed planning itinerary than Tom Bricker's site. And I used it religiously to help plan our trip to Japan. So, I've hung out with Tom multiple times over the years, and we've, taken pictures together, hung out, and we most recently at Epic Universe. He was there opening day or pass holder day. And so he helped kind of structure what Disney Kind of Life is today. So that's the way those two kind of influenced me. They continue to. I still follow both of them. So
I love it. I think people do that continuously as we go through and find them. I know Lou Mangello is still one of mine myself. So Jen, that chat's been jumping. I know we've had some people come in. You want to highlight that?
Yeah, for sure. We've had a few friends come in. Want to say hello to Jennifer Caruso. Hello. And Ryan Rowe and Kendrick, Sebastian the Crab, Ozan from Ukraine, Turkey, and Alyssa and Neil.
Hello.
So, hello.
Welcome in, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
Well, now's my favorite part of the show where we get to talk about the drink of the week.
Oh, yes.
And this is a new one. We haven't talked about this one before. I actually haven't even heard of this drink, so I'm excited to hear about it. It's called the Ottawa Apple at the Canadian Pavilion. And I know nothing about this drink, so I'm going to hand it over to Kevin. Kevin, tell us about this drink and why you chose it.
All right. So anyone who knows me knows I am a bourbon lover, Scotch lover, whiskey. And so this has Crown Royal in it. So you're starting off with Canadian whiskey already. So that's a win. And then you have the crisp apple in there. So I don't know what they use to do the apple. If I remember correctly, this is like infusion, but that can mean all sorts of stuff. So I don't know if they kind of put their Canadian, Crown Royal in like something with an apple, but just those two things alone are enough to do it. I think there's maple syrup in there. And I'm just telling you, if you start in Canada, which is already a hot topic, I don't know if you start in Canada, if you start in Mexico, or some people start in France or Great Britain. It depends which way you turn from the international gateway. But the Ottawa Apple is, if you happen to go to Canada, and I'm not saying that's the way to go, it's a good stop.
No, we're not going there.
And so it's over at the Maple Popcorn. At the Maple Popcorn stand. So go get in line.
I know where that is.
Yeah, get your maple popcorn, get an Ottawa Apple, and just chill, because the perspective of World Showcase from the Canadian Pavilion is great. It's also good for Mexico, although they got the restaurant kind of blocking it, so you got to kind of move over and go enjoy something from La Cava off to the side. But yeah, so the Ottawa Apple I kind of like refreshing stuff because it's warm here a lot of the times. And so apples are more refreshing to me than tequila or mezcal. So, that's my choice. If I'm going to partake in a cocktail, I'll go to Canada and grab an Ottawa Apple. And it just hits right. Now, when the festivals are going, sometimes you get the Hawaiian booth, like for the food and wine has like usually a nice, I think they call it a Lani Sunrise. That would be number 2, but that's not offered all the time. So you can't sit on that one. The Ottawa Apple is always at that cart with the maple popcorn. So
I think next trip I want to try that, Jen.
I think so too. I didn't even know it existed.
Jen,
but then you said maple popcorn, and I'm like, okay, sold.
Yeah. Jen, what color is that drink?
It looks like a deep red.
Oh,
yep. It looks like a Macintosh or a Red Delicious apple, probably. That color.
Yes, it does. Definitely a deep red. It's not purple. I know that's what you were trying to get at, that it looked a little purple. No, it is not Raven's pansy purple, whatever shade that is. It's red.
I would never say Raven purple. Let's go Figment purple, because we don't acknowledge the Ravens as a 49ers
Strike one on both of you. Strike one on both of you.
My new favorite person.
Figment purple. It's Figment purple.
Figment purple. There we go. There we go. I would definitely try this. Actually, I wrote it down. It's going on my next list. So next trip down there, I don't forget to get it. So
I like it.
Pete, you're going to try it too, right? We're going to try it.
I will try it with you. It sounds really good.
Yeah, it really does. Sounds refreshing.
Welcome in, Ken. Good to see you, buddy.
Hi, Ken.
I think it's time after that we go to redo the fun questions a little bit with our guests like we usually do. And I'm going to let ladies first on this one as we throw it over to our guests to see what your answer would be.
Okay, I'm going to flip the question around to you now, Kevin. If you could appear on any reality show, which would it be and why?
All right, so my answer's changed over the years. So Emma and I love watching Big Brother, Survivor, and Amazing Race. So we're big into the CBS. Those are the only three. I know it sounds like a lot to watch, even three, but there's so much reality TV out there now. And I feel like we create reality TV with our content creation a little bit, a lot better than some of the stuff out there. But those three we still watch.
Okay.
And so I've thought about this well before you even asked, 20 minutes ago when you asked it. And it used to be Survivor. And as I've watched Survivor, I've never missed Survivor. As I've watched it over the years, like, you know what? I don't want to do that. Probably go on Amazing Race. Survivor doesn't look very fun. It sounds fun, but it doesn't look fun when you start thinking about being on Survivor. We love watching Survivor. Big Brother, too much business. 24-hour live cams, and that's just too much business out there. I like watching it, but I don't want to be there and every whisper being heard. So Amazing Race, you get to see the world. You get to bring a person with you trust. I'd bring Emma, and given what we've kind of done with our traveling and our blogging, obviously it kind of fits into our style. We love trying different cuisines. We love learning about people's culture. So that fits the bill. By no means is that easier than the other two, but it probably would be my jam.
Nice. I love it. Okay.
I agree.
And I didn't answer that earlier, but my answer would be Disney Survivor, which means trying to get out of the park on New Year's Eve after the fireworks. That's Disney. That's Disney Survivor. That's the show that I would go on. So
every man for themselves.
Yes, you just do what you can. You end up getting swallowed up. It's too bad. So, well, my question was the one that Jen proposed, which I thought was really good. If you could go back in time and talk to your 12-year-old self for 15 minutes, what would you tell yourself?
Couple things. One's financial stability. So I'd probably give myself some stock tips. That's the obvious answer. The other one I would do, though, is give a list of how much longer I had with certain people in my life that aren't here today. And I wouldn't tell them necessarily, probably. I don't want to dive too much into that subject, but just, being able to talk to my grandma and know how much longer I have with her, my uncles, and several individuals that kind of go along the way. I might tell myself a couple of things about Disney futures, like some of the attractions that would be opening in the future, and maybe plan around some of those events to be at them. And speaking of that, if there's a couple of events that maybe I should have went to, that I would probably tell myself to go to those events. I wouldn't want to change too much about like my career because it's brought me to here. So changing some of that stuff back to the future style, right? Like your photo starts changing. You don't want to change the photo too much because I actually like where I've come from and where I've gotten to. So I don't want to change too much of that. So the financial one could really screw that up if you don't do it correctly. So you'd have to educate your younger self, like kind of stay the path. But but also, this will help you like, and then here's how much you have left with your loved ones.
I love it. Great answer.
I think both of your guys' answers were good. Like you didn't say like, oh, I would tell myself what the winning lottery numbers are. I mean, I don't know.
I would just, as I was vanishing, go Google and then gone.
Yeah, there you go.
Google day one. Bye.
So
I get it. Okay, we're going to go back to some more questions now that we have, because the one thing we always love to hear are about magical memories in the parks. And it's always something special, when those happen. So I understand there are two stories that would be great for our audience to hear. One about a magical happening at Hong Kong Disneyland. And another about your first time riding Rise of the Resistance. Could you share these experiences with our guests tonight?
Certainly. So I'll start with Hong Kong Disneyland. So Emma and I went over to the Philippines. This is where Emma's from. She was my teammate at work. So that's how we met. And so I went over to the Philippines for 6 weeks. And as part of that trip, we decided to go to Hong Kong for 6 days. And obviously the main target was Hong Kong Disney. Most people don't go to Hong Kong for Disneyland. We did. And so I had a bit of a surprise for the first day. So we did 2 days at Hong Kong Disneyland. I always tell people, if you're going to an international park, try to do 2 days if it fits in your agenda, just so you don't feel too rushed. I don't like rushing through the parks. So it's just not what we do. And so decided to get engaged there. So let's talk about how we got there. So I brought this ring with me, which is from my great grandma from the 1920s. And I kind of had it reforged into an engagement ring. And when I got into the Philippines, got the dad, mom's blessing, told them what I was going to do, get over to Hong Kong Disneyland, right? I have this thing in my pocket and I'm planning to do it at the Snow White Wishing Well. They had, I don't know if they still have it. They haven't been there recently, but they had it then. It was an exact replica castle of Disneyland at that time. They've redone it since, and we haven't been back. And so first thing I was like, oh, hey, I want to go see the Wishing Well first. She's like, really? Like the Wishing Well? Like, yeah, let's go to the castle, take a picture in front of it. Let's go to the well, and then we'll go over to Mystic Manor, right? Or what? And so, I pretended I injured my knee. I fell down on the ground, not like a real fall, like an Andy's Toys fall, but just got on my knee and I proposed in front of the Wishing Well, right? And so obviously you'll never forget that moment. That was our first 15 minutes in Hong Kong Disneyland, and we're walking down Main Street, their Main Street's like a brick road. It looks a little different than most Main Streets. The castle at that time was Sleeping Beauty's castle, modeled after Disneyland. And, we head over to the Wishing Well. And then after that, we started making our way through Hong Kong Disneyland, which has grown since that time period. That was 2013. It's significantly grown and changed during that time. And then I'll talk about Rise of the Resistance. So in 2019, Rise of the Resistance, this is at Disneyland, was slated to open, I think, January 19th in 2019. And if you think about what happened in March 2020, the timing was amazing because we got on it before the world shut down. But we decided, like, hey, let's go open it and let's stay at Disneyland Hotel for the first time ever. So we booked 2 nights at the Disneyland Hotel. Never had stayed there before. And we're like, maybe we'll get in early, or who knows, maybe there'll be a perk that we don't know about, but we've never done it. Let's stay there. So we did 2 nights. And so like 5:30 in the morning, we wander over to the ticket gate from Disneyland Hotel. And there's just, there's a lot of people at 5:30, but it wasn't, I've seen worse. The 24-hour event had a way worse line than Rise of the Resistance did. And so they let us in the Main Street around, I think 7:15. And Main Street starts just looking like Woodstock. Like there's just people camping out everywhere. They're on the streets. The only thing they're missing are blankets pretty much, but people are making little huddle corners, practicing virtual queue and all this stuff. Because virtual queue was a new concept. I think Disney World rolled it out for their Rise of the Resistance, and Disneyland was installing it for the first time for Rise of the Resistance. Okay. So we're getting ready for 8 to happen. Park opened at 8 that day. And so, we pulled like group 11, I think. 12, or like, the Main Street's like erupting with cheers, right? Like as people are pulling all these things. And so then we're like, well, we got that. Now what do we do? We don't know when we're going to get on it, if we're going to get on it, because there was rumors it was struggling, right? Like all the way to its lead up, even after Disney World kind of fixed some stuff. Anyways, we decided to head over to the ride. We're like, we have group 11. It's kind of early, but it's not group 1, so kind of head over there. And, we get to the area, and to our surprise, like, nobody like stopped us. So we got all the way to like the entrance, and there's Bob Chapek, who's CEO at the time. Kim Irvine was there, and several others that I didn't recognize. But they're all kind of together. So I was like, oh, like we got the crew here, right? A couple news cameras. I was like, oh, that's cool, right? And so they start boarding, and shockingly, they were taking groups like 11 to 13. I was like, oh, like did we miss groups 1 through whatever? So we're right there. We go right in, right? And so never had seen Rise of the Resistance until this point. And so we get in, and we're just walking through the caves, the very long caves. Everybody's used to waiting in, passing all the stone benches, going through. We get all the way to the Ray Room. There's only like 2 other people with us. We're like, that's interesting. And so, we see the pre-show. We go in, do the ship, the Star Destroyer, the Stormtroopers. I'm like goosebumps, taking pictures, but rushing because there's like nobody in front of us. We get all the way into the Force Room where Kylo Ren, the jail, and then get on the ride, right? And so we experience it. I'm like in tears on this ride. This is the first time we ever went on this thing. Is mind-blowing. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. So this is everything I wanted in a Star Wars attraction. Galaxy's Edge is a different story, but Rise of the Resistance nailed every aspect of a Star Wars attraction. Okay. And when we get off of this thing, and we go off to the side, there's like this little L-shaped like cement thing, and all the Imagineers are there like cheering for us, as we were like on one of the first cars on this thing. Had no clue, because we're group 11. Like I don't know what happened to the other whatever groups, but so there we are. I'm like bawling. I'm like shaking people's hands, fist pumping, like hugging people I don't even know. Like, and I get over to like the news interviews. Unfortunately, I had 49er gear on because they had made the Super Bowl. It was against the Chiefs, not the Ravens. And so I had a bunch of Niner gear on. So I never saw the footage. I don't think they ever put it out there because I didn't have on any Disney stuff because I was celebrating the 49ers. So that experience was something. And every time we go on Rise of the Resistance, instead of nitpicking all the effects that aren't working, which unfortunately is a lot sometimes, I just remember that moment, especially even here at Hollywood Studios, that little cement piece. They really cloned the two things. That little cement L thing is there. And
It's
so
there,
anybody who's heard my story and sees that, that's where the Imagineers were standing. And just like I said, it felt like I'd won the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, the Niners did a couple of weeks later, but so that experience probably doesn't top the getting engaged at Hong Kong Disney, but really enjoy that one. That's a good one.
Love it. Oh, you're muted.
I had a little background noise. Sorry about that. Okay, so now let's talk about Disney Kind of Life and the success you've had on social media since your inception. Could you spend a few minutes sharing with our audience the story behind that journey and how it all began?
Yeah, so, oh, excuse me. So originally when we started the website, it was kind of a place to tell people like what we're doing here, because you would call your friends and family back home in California, you know, before we had friends here. Excuse me, take a drip of water here.
Please.
And so I wanted to tell a story in written form, you know, because I didn't think I would do good on the YouTube thing. And I want to do written form, and, you know, like my mom could read it, like, oh, this is the Food and Wine Festival at Epcot. You've never been here. You can read that. And my mom's like an avid reader of our blog, and one of our biggest supporters, obviously. And she loves reading those. And, you know, like I kind of mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't read. So I try to keep those short. It was a place for me to put, you know, my pictures instead of putting them on Facebook or Instagram, so that I could kind of catalog pictures of the parks, because I love taking photos. I didn't really mention this before, but earlier, like on the My Chat forums, I would just post pictures because I really love taking kind of pictures that other people wouldn't, like of the structures. Like, you know, the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland is a beautiful building. Right? It looks very French Quarter-esque, and it's a great thing to photograph. And so I wanted a place to put this stuff instead of, you know, Photo Bucket, Facebook, like mine, and a place to archive. So, and then talk about what these photos are and why we did them that day. And I started structuring them around the seasonal events. So obviously the Food and Wine Festival, Festival of the Arts, Holiday Festival, Garden, you know, and Halloween Horror Nights for people that like that. So those are kind of the things. And I still do those written articles today, not as frequent as I used to, but I still do them because I really love writing. So I think my personality comes out pretty good in written form and now video form. And then there just came a point where I figured it'd be easier to just video this stuff, you know, and I just started doing the videos. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't show off any of the earlier stuff, just to start watching them to see, do I like my voice, how I look, beard, no beard. Like, you know, I still struggle with that because sometimes when it's hot here, I don't like the beard, but I kind of like it, like the way it looks on camera more than my baby face. And that's kind of how we got here, and we're still having fun with it, and so we still keep doing it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
That's great.
Love it. Well, let's jump in. We should also say hello. I think, Jen, we had Find a Fun came in.
Find a Fun. Hello.
I love it. Great channel name. You mentioned Run Disney earlier as being one of your passions for you. And, you know, along with, you know, Disney cruising, Disneybounding, and even costumes for the Star Wars Galactic Cruiser, which never got to go on. I'm being a Star Wars fan, you are glad that you did. Could you open up to our audience for a minute about kind of this part of your Disney life, you know, the bounding, the cruising, and a little bit of that? Just a quick touch on those, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, what's cool about, so Run Disney, let's start there. One of the cooler cultural phenomenons of Run Disney and any running event is the theme and what people do with that theme. So, you know, when we did the Dopey Challenge, I think Pluto is the theme of the 5K, you know, so we wore Pluto stuff, you know, and because you don't have to run for the 5Ks. I always tell people, that's why I tell people to do 10K, try one where you have to run. You can actually walk the 5Ks. They don't sweep you and there's no time constraints. So those, you can really kind of do your costumes up. So creating the costumes and making them functional while running is kind of fun. So we kind of do a good job of that. Emma does a huge part in helping me plan what we're going to look like.
Awesome.
And then transitioning over to, like, you know, Disney cruise ships, that's easy to dress for. So you just throw on any shirt, any Roosevelt shirt or their shorts. You can go in the ocean in them and the pool, and they dry off very fast, all the way to the Star Cruiser. And then for the Star Cruiser, we wanted to obviously play the part because it was a role playing experience for 2 days. Right. They call it 3 days, but it was really 2. And so we just kind of thrifted around and put together two characters that really did look like they would exist in the Star Wars universe and created stories for them. I can't remember the names of the two characters now at this point. It escapes me. But we played the part and engaged with as many of the characters on the ship as we could, because that was what we were there for. That's one of my complaints of Galaxy's Edge, is it's supposed to be a living, breathing Star Wars thing. But, when you see Hank in his New York Yankees hat rolling through, it's kind of hard to keep the theme. Does that mean the Yankees are canon now? But I say that lightheartedly because I love the way Galaxy's Edge looks. But the Star Cruiser took it a step further and actually installed a bunch of stuff that you could live Star Wars. And I hope they bring some of that stuff into Galaxy's Edge and build it up a little more, because there's some aspects to the Star Cruiser that they could make paid experiences that people would sign up for, like the dinner show. Like they had a live singer, and she was there's multiple that played the character, but she is phenomenal. And it was like a dinner show that, if they had a table reservation system package, I mean, they have dessert packages that are $180. They could figure out a price point to redo that somewhere. I think originally there was supposed to be a restaurant with Oga's Cantina, but if they would do that, that would be a hit, because a lot of the Star Wars fans like to cosplay in Bound. So the Star Cruiser nailed that piece of it. Financially, it was a disaster for both the guests and probably for.
They got to figure out something over there, though. So that's a good idea. I hope they do something with that. I'd like to see a more of extension of Galaxy's Edge myself. I love that.
Correct.
Well, I'd be remiss sitting here talking with you, Kevin, with all your experiences. And guys, if you're watching tonight, you got to be sitting here like I am when I first started talking with Kevin. Be like, wow, when you talk to Disney friends that have done a lot, that bring a lot to the table. Kevin, obviously now with his YouTube and everything with his socials, really does that. But I'd be remiss if we didn't ask you real quick about your times at D23. You've attended multiple D23 events. What kind of impact has that had on you?
So what's funny about my D23 experiences, they're all early on, because let's talk about the first one was, it was a big deal, but it's not like it is today. I mean, I haven't attended one in a while. We're about to go to the one here in September, which is kind of a junior accompanying one of the big one in Anaheim. But those first couple in Anaheim, the biggest lines were for the merchandise store, especially for the Mickey's at Glendale, which is the Imagineering store.
Right.
Multiple hours, right? And the panels, like you had to pick the one thing you wanted to do. They've changed the way that they do reservation systems now. In fact, the last D23 in Anaheim, they did the parks panel in the place where the Ducks play. I mean, 25,000 or 20,000 people to sit there for the parks panel instead of just a conference room. So I mean, it's crazy now. So attending those fandoms did help shape kind of us going to pop culture cons. We go to a lot of conventions with the shirts, like the Roosevelt's has booths at a lot of the conventions. So we like to kind of pick and choose which events we're going to go to, just to kind of fuel our passion for pop culture, because Disney's not the only thing we like. We're into a lot of stuff. So, and it's fun to go talk to artists at the conventions or talk to celebrities. Talking to celebrities is tough because it's so templated and quick. But when you talk to artists at the tables, just like the Festival of the Arts here at Epcot, you get so much, interpersonal communication with them, and you can really talk to them about their craft, and it's not as rushed as like a celebrity meeting, and so the D23 conventions early on really kind of jump-started all of that. And we've been to so many conventions. We don't really video log the conventions. We usually do MegaCon because it's the local one. So we'll usually do a vlog there. But like last year, we went to New York City Comic Con and we videoed some stuff, and we just went back and watched. We're like, there's really nothing to tell there. Like, if we had a Patreon, which we don't, we maybe would throw it there unedited, but I just didn't like the story. If I don't like the story we're telling, we don't release stuff. We've had a couple of mishaps like that. Victoria and Albert's, we have a video for that we never released. It just was my first restaurant food review, and I just didn't like it. And so, it's sitting there unedited. Maybe someday we'll add special effects to it or something. I don't know.
I love it. You had that experience with D23. Yeah. That's awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Okay, well, I want to take a minute and say hello to Matt Wolter, who came in. Hello, Matt. Hey, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, buddy.
This is the time of the show where we talk about the channels that our enhancers and creators enjoy watching and following. So tonight we're going to highlight two channels. The first run is Right Down Main Street, And the second one is For the Love of Theme Parks. So, Kevin, can you tell us what it is that you love about For the Love of Theme Parks?
Sure. So I actually ran into, so Ryan is the main person on For the Love Theme Parks. He was on one of our vlogs for May the 4th, 2024. I interviewed him, and I just kind of struck up a friendship with him. And as I was starting to check out his channel, I was really impressed with the level of detail Ryan does for history. So his videos are usually history based. He'll do a couple like vlog styles, but mainly history. That's what he really loves doing, and he puts a lot of work into them. So they don't come out as often as other channels, but when they do, the quality is top notch. In fact, the latest one he did was on Jaws, the ride at Universal Studios Orlando. And if you're a Jaws fan, a Jaws ride fan, or Universal fan, highly suggest it. He interviews one of the old, I don't know if they called them skippers for the Jaws ride, but he interviewed somebody from there, and you'll be really impressed with how much research Ryan does in his videos. And that Jaws one's amazing. I mean, he's got a lot of good ones, but if you check that one out, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about with his stuff.
Cool.
And he's a very nice guy. So if you see him, say hi to him.
And tell us about Right Down Main Street. What do you love about this channel?
All right, so Ryan does history, Christian does food. So I love food, I love trying stuff, and what's great about her channel is she will tell you how she feels, good or bad, and it really saves me a lot of money. I love watching her because she tells me what not to eat, and I get a good perspective on that, and also what to eat. And sometimes we don't always agree. And again, when you see her in the park, you can talk to her about some of the items you've tried that she's reviewed, and she'll go into depth with you on why she felt that way that day. And she's admitted some days things just don't taste as good as they do other days. So I really like the authenticity of her food reviews. They're very interesting, and she puts a lot out quick, and will try all sorts of yummy stuff and not so yummy stuff. In fact, I think one of her more recent ones is like I'll get the title wrong, but the 5 most terrible things at Epic Universe. So,
oh my God.
So she does good and bad. So, and sometimes we love watching bad, right? It's like, I'm glad I'm not eating that,
Two great channels, and both of them in our race to 100K. So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
That you selected them. Well, let me do a quick recap from tonight. It's been amazing to sit here. I've gotten to learn, know Kevin a little bit more than I had on our phone calls, and I'm even more intrigued by his story and his knowledge. Tonight, we had the pleasure of learning about our guest's inspiring journey to discover this incredible Disney social media community, and hearing how they developed their love for Run Disney. And you can see the pride in his face holding up that dopey medal right there, and rightfully so. That's a heck of an accomplishment. I love it. And those things are pieces of art now, the way Disney does them. Kevin shared his memorable interactions with icons like Bob Gurr and Dave Smith, and he opened up about key influences in his life, with Walt Disney himself at the very core of all things Disney. Our guest tonight shared the journey from the inception of Disney Kind of Life on social media, talked about the incredible drink from the Canadian Pavilion, which Jen and I will both be partaking in, and I'll be texting Kevin if it's that good, or the other way, or maybe even trying to text you and say, hey, meet us at the Canada Cart. We're going to try an apple drink.
It's a weekend. There's a possibility.
It's a weekend. We can make it's going to be Festival of the Arts. So we could probably work that out. And highlighted 2 great Disney-based channels, obviously, as we just talked about, with For the Love of the Mouse and Right Down Main Street. Finally, our guests tied up everything with engaging discussions on D23, Disneybounding, and talking about their channel in depth. And how could you not be touched by the amazing story of getting engaged in the parks? I think that's kind of every Disney fan's dream in a way. So make sure you've hit the links. The moderators have been doing a great job dropping all the links in, including Debbie picked up on what I was talking about, and she started dropping the Dopey vid as well in there. So all the links are also available if you're watching on the replay in the description of this video, so you can find them right away. If you had a good time, click over, give them a follow, check out their content. You will not be disappointed. Before we tie things up, Jen, could you tell us a little bit about next week?
Yeah, of course. Next week, our adventures take us back to California as we welcome a creator who brings the magic of the West Coast parks to life. Our guest is a family-based channel that covers everything at the parks, including food, merchandise, rides, shows, and so much more. With this being 4th of July weekend, it's a perfect time to acknowledge that next week's guest served our country as a proud Marine and now loves delivering the Disney magic home through his channel. With over 26,000 subscribers and more than 6 million channel views, this continued growth remains a driving factor for them. Joining us next week will be the California success story behind Making Magical Adventures.
Oh, I love that. Love that.
Mhm.
Before we do our final thought, I want to remind everybody of a couple things. First off, the drink of the week was spectacular. It was the Ottawa Apple over there at Epcot. Make sure if you're down there and you have a good time and you like it and you think it's good, make sure to hit Kevin up on his social media and let him know, hey, I heard about it over here on the show and I really did love it. Of course, we highlighted right down Main Street and for the love of theme parks, which was awesome. Sincere thank you to our guests tonight for being here and taking the time to come out. If you've had a good time, hey, go over on YouTube. Links right there in the chat. Give them a follow at 2.6 right there. We'd love for you to do that. You can also keep up with them on Facebook for Disney Kind of Life. Thank you, Mark, for your support for 16 months. Really appreciate you, buddy. And also over on Instagram as well. And he talked about a lot of the writing he does over on Disney Kind of Life. The website is a great place to find it. Again, all of those links are right there in the chat. Before we close up, I want to remind everybody we have our Instagram, Working Hard for the Triple C Show. Make sure you're following so you're up to date. You can listen to this episode and every other one in our podcast listing that we go through every week over there. And I want to remind everybody that I will be live at 10:45 tonight for Disney Insomniacs. Recap from the week, 5 new channels this week that we're going to talk about and so much more good stuff going on. Kevin has a video. I want to make sure I throw this out there to you guys. He has got a video. Tom Sawyer is a hot topic right now. Today is the last day. Many of our friends were down there live. Kevin took the time to go over this past week and do a whole video on Tom Sawyer's Island, and that just went up. So if you'd like a great recap that is to the point and very educated and incredible quality, check out his Tom Sawyer video, everybody. Really appreciate if you would do that. Kev, we always throw it over to our guests before we go with a final thought of the night, open-ended, however you want to go. Your thought of the final thought of the night, sir.
I just want to thank you again for having me, and I hope everybody enjoyed peeking into our Disney Kind of Life. It's what we like to put out there, positive vibes. Want you to, if you're missing a theme park, you can go find an experience that you're missing. Like with the Tom Sawyer video, we wanted to catalog that so people can remember what was there when, Piston Peak opens in, I think, 4 to 5 years. That's my guess.
Hey, watch your language.
Yeah, that's been a hot topic, right?
Yes,
I can tell you, like the Country Bear Jamboree video we did before they took it down, that video continues to do stuff. So if you're ever missing an experience, our idea is to tell that story and put it there. So I thank everybody for letting me come on here and share Disney Kind of Life with you.
I love that. I love that. Jen, final thought.
Yeah, I want to say thanks for joining us so that our viewers can get to know you a little bit better, get to know what your channel is all about. It was great hearing your stories. I do want to circle back and go back to the intro. One thing we didn't talk about when we had in our intro that you had visited 49 of the 50 states.
Great catch.
What's the one?
So I'll ask you guys which one it is, but I'm going to take Alaska off the board because I've been there. That's usually one people pick. So it's not Alaska, and I'll take Hawaii off the board because I've been there as well. So I'll take those two. Those are usually the two people guess. So you have a choice of 48 others.
All right, Jen, pick a state. See if you get it right.
I'm going to say Idaho.
I'm going to say Ohio.
It's Maine.
Ah!
Somehow, when I got to Vermont and New Hampshire for my brother's wedding, I didn't step over to Maine. So I have to get up there and get there.
Well, that's a good
definitely
state to have to go to. It's beautiful up there.
And I love Stephen King. So, I got to get up to Derry, which is a fictional city.
It's a great area up there. I love that.
Yeah.
Mark
So there you go.
Mark Langenkamp says tonight, great interview. Kevin is very engaging.
Mm-hmm.
Love that, Mark. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
My final thought of the night is, again, I hope we see you more within our community. I hope that you see many of our community members coming over and integrating into your community out there as we do it. I get to the parks a bunch, so I definitely hope we run into each other. It's always great when you meet somebody new that has a unique story in so many different facets that you kind of go, because when Walt sat on that train coming home from New York, and I talk about this all the time, and drew a picture of Mickey on a napkin, or Mortimer, as it should be, on a napkin, and he wasn't thinking that day that, in the year 2025, 3 people that didn't know each other at all prior to Disney stuff because of Disney, one from Maryland, one from Ohio, one California, now living in Florida, would be sitting here having great discussion and talking about their passions and their beliefs. So I think it's awesome. You've got a great knowledge of Disney, and I can't wait to see your successes as we go through in any way we can help. 100%. We want to make sure we do that. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Pete. And thanks, Jen. I appreciated
Absolutely.
it.
Hang tight real quick. We're going to say goodbye and then we'll talk backstage for just a second. Jen, another great interview. I absolutely loved it. And sitting talking with Kevin, it was a blast here. If you want to pop it, there we go. Looking forward to obviously next week's. Man, incredibly interesting and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love meeting new creators. This community just keeps growing and growing, and it's what helps you build the bonds.
Yes.
We also often talk about this being, community, but it turns into family a lot too.
Absolutely.
This community is family. So anytime we can meet new people, learn their stories, you make that connection, and that's why I love this show so much.
Love the show. We can't wait to get back. Tina and Angela and Steph next week. We lose you, unfortunately, because you will be in the islands somewhere on a cruise. So
I will be somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle.
Well, we wish you the best of time, a lot of good time with your family. We can't wait to get you back here on the Triple C's with us as well. Don't forget, everybody, I'll be live in an hour. And Jen, I see what you're trying to do, and I don't care if he's backstage.
No, God!
Not letting Paul on, Jen.
You got a smile that makes the sun rise. You make it shine, but I can see that you don't